Hello and welcome to the Inquisitorial Archive. My name's Kevin Rourke and today I'm going to be reviewing First Founding for Deathwatch, published by Fantasy Flight Games. First Founding is a supplement that details, gives more details on all of the First Founding chapters, both Loyalist and Traitor Marines. One of the best parts in this book, I think, is the fact that you finally get rules for the other First Founding chapters which aren't in the core book or Rites of Battle. You've got the Iron Hands, and you've got the Raven Guard, and you've got the White Scars and the Salamanders, and it's really nice to have them. And they're all horrendously good at what they're supposed to be good at. The White Scars are quite mobile, and the Raven Guard are ridiculously stealthy. They're leaving everyone else in the dust, but that's what they're supposed to do. You don't have to go out of your way to be good at stealth with them. You just pretty much are, given their soul mode and everything. It works out pretty well with them. All of them have their own psychic powers, their own squad mode, solo mode. They, just like the core book, they get one solo mode, one attack pattern, one defense pattern for the squad modes. They all get their own chapter advance table. Some of them have special talents in their advance table that haven't shown up in other places, at least not yet anyway. They might show up in other places later. There's the guerrilla training for the Raven Guard, which means you're not taking the penalty for silent move and concealment for wearing power armor. You are still taking the -10 penalty to concealment for wearing, if you take this, you still are taking the -10 penalty for concealment because you are hulking in your power armor. But that's going from a -40 in concealment and -30 to silent move to just a -10 to concealment, and that's it. And combined with your solo modes and stuff, works out pretty well. You got a few nice talents for them. I do know myself from reading through one or two bits that they've got to go get. Fantasy Flight has to go to Games Workshop line, and there's a couple of bits where I was just kind of looking and like, yeah, I can see where Games Workshop has been chewing in new bits of background. I suppose they want to link stuff up a bit more. I think give you a reasonable overview of the chapters. It works out. They all have their own chapter demeanors, things like that. And I don't think any of them are over. I know some people have reservations, particularly about the Raven Guard or some of the other ones, but I think they're balanced enough. I don't think there's a particularly huge problem with them. The next chapter you're coming into, they start talking about the chapters that are in the core book and Rites of Battle. You know, the Imperial Fists and the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels and the Ultramarines and Space Wolves. Which is fine, except for this is where I start getting a little bit annoyed. It's more later on with seeing what the total content in the book. You end up that the Space Wolves are getting a new soul mode. You can't access it to rank 3, where they start boasting for it. I don't have a problem with that. I actually like the idea of like the Space Wolf when you're doing your oath boasting, like, oh, I'm gonna kill X many really hard guys. There's a couple of different oaths they can effectively take. And they get bonuses throughout the mission when they do certain things. However, they fail to live up to those bonuses. There's certain criteria that you have to make, like you have to destroy 30 magnitude of Horde yourself. If you don't live up to that criteria, you actually lose your now and down. So that's actually a pretty cool one, and I do like it. And you end up with some nice stuff. Like, the problem is that I find really annoying is they're after suddenly starting to give. They decided to give the guys from the core book the additional solo mode, so that's an additional solo mode and 2 squad modes. I think the Ultramarines get more than 2 squad modes actually. I think they get 4 additional squad modes, which doesn't seem fair to me. Yeah, I'm just counting. Yeah, it's 4 additional squad modes. And they give them oaths. I don't mind the chapter specific oath. I think that's actually pretty cool. The problem is you have a section then that is almost entirely back. There's a few bits of equipment following this on the Traitor Legion First Founding chapters, which are about 4 pages each, roughly, I think. I find it annoying that after introducing the other First Founding chapters and they're buffing the guys in the main book. More options is always a buff, whatever way you want to try and go, because they don't have to do any of this stuff, but they've got additional options. And it doesn't seem entirely fair that they're suddenly giving additional squad modes to these guys, but at the same time they're bringing these new guys, but they're not bringing them at the same level. You've got these guys who are just been brought in, but you've got the other guys who are alright. It just seems like they could have done it a bit better. As well as this, you end up with some advanced specializations. like the Sanguinary Priest and the Wolf Priest and stuff, which they do say, yeah, it's very rare that you're going to end up with a Sanguinary Priest or a Wolf Priest or someone being sent to the Deathwatch. But it could potentially happen, and the GM is under no obligation to allow them into the game. But it can happen. I myself allowed a Deathwatch veteran into a game. I had no problem with it. He'd reached a certain level. He actually got, you get a suit of Terminator armor. This is part of your standard war gear. You can wear your power armor, you don't have to wear it in every mission. But he had a suit of Terminator armor. It was a librarian. That was pretty cool. And I didn't think, I thought it worked out pretty well, especially because even though the rest of the party weren't wearing Terminator armor in a lot of the missions, actually I think he was the only one in that entire campaign who ever wore Terminator armor. He would have, it was a double-edged sword because he was a lot slower than people, and whenever people were going to cover, he was still out in the open, and sometimes bad guys would shoot him because he was easier to hit. They also have, I know what some people don't like, is they have stats for Furioso Dreadnoughts, and basically going on about Blood Angel Librarian Dreadnoughts, which is, some people don't like that. They recently, over the last year or two, they brought into the background of the Blood Angels, and it's the fact that you can use any of your psychic powers, and one of the Blood Angel psychic powers allows you to grow wings and fly like a jump jet. So you flying Dreadnoughts, some people are going to have no problem with it. I didn't particularly like it in the tabletop. I wouldn't be too keen on. I'm not too keen on people playing Dreadnoughts anyway in it. But all of them have a new oath, which is pretty cool. Like the Space Wolf one is very offensive. The Imperial Fist one is quite good at all siege aspects. You get bonuses to your Tactics Assault and Tactics Defense, which work out pretty cool. You don't have to allow any of this stuff, but one thing that there's a couple of things that really annoy me in here. For example, there is the Wolf Scout, who are space wolves who are horribly antisocial. And okay, I can get over that. There's some interesting role-playing opportunities there, except that the way they go about giving them their special abilities to make them unique, you have to be rank 1, you have to be a tactical marine, and you have to be a space wolf. It's 200 XP, so you have to start the game as one of them. It's 200 XP. One of the things that immediately made me kind of a bit worried is, well, you're not getting anything to make you better. Well, you're still getting penalties for power armor. You have your suit of power armor, but you're also given a suit of carapace armor. Your suit of carapace armor, you're not going to have any problems with that. This is to help you stealth because you don't have guerrilla training like the Raven Guard do. You're supposed to be wearing the scout armor most of the time, except for if you're going to an environment where it's toxic and you have to wear your power armor. You still have a suit of power armor. You just don't normally wear it that much. The fact that you can get swift attack and lightning attack from their advanced game, and there's no restrictions on, I don't understand why they can't come up with, because this is part of this particular advanced game, I don't understand why they can't put in additional like rank restrictions, and so you have to wait a while. You can, in theory, as a Wolf Scout, and it's not that hard, get lightning attack before the assault marine can. At rank 1, you haven't even left rank 1, you have lightning attack. You can get swift attack and lightning attack from it. You already have counter attack because you're a space wolf. They change the stat advances. You don't get the +5 to your fellowship. You normally get a +5 to fellowship and perception. You just get a +5 to perception and agility with these guys because they're not that sociable. The drawback with them is supposed to be that you can't take talent instead of a fellowship requirement, that kind of thing. But to be honest, I could potentially get over lightning attack and stuff. It's where they have 2 new talents start coming in. One of them is effectively that you use your perception instead of your agility. You can use your perception instead of your agility for stealth, to put it bluntly. And your Space Wolf solo mode is giving you a free reroll to all failed rolls. It's like, okay, well, you can say, well, the Raven Guard gets a free reroll anyway, but you get unnatural trait perception later on with the Space Wolf once you get to a certain rank. It means that you can stack all this stuff into your agility, and as well, because it's a tactical marine, a rank 2 in tactical marine, you get combat sense, so you can use your perception bonus instead of your agility bonus for your initiative. The only things where perception is where your agility is going to matter are for dodge checks primarily, and your movement speed. On an average game, that's pretty much all you're going to be coming up with for these guys, and it seems, for the amount they're giving up, it seems horribly powerful. They've got another ability where they're shooting from concealment, or they've set up demolitions, they do additional magic damage against the horde. I don't mind that so much. They went to the bother of starting up the Stalker Pattern Silence Bolt Pistol, which is like a silence bolt pistol. But the problem with that is that they put it in there for them, but they don't later in the book have it that a requisition cost for that for other people. I've seen GMs just slapping on requisition costs going, why not? The Wolf Priest and stuff, I allowed one to a game once. When the player, we were starting rank 1, the player's like, I want to play Wolf Priest. Like, you have to rank 4 to become Wolf Priest. It's like, I can just play Wolf Priest later. And it's like, I don't really see why in the Deathwatch you would suddenly become a Wolf Priest. But he came up with a good reason, his character being, you know, hardly damaged in battle, he suffered brain injuries. So they didn't want to basically damage the morale of the lower down blood claws. So they said, well, the Wolf Priest, like, we will send him until he has recovered to the Deathwatch. So RP wise, he was a Wolf Priest. The character died before he actually got the mechanical side of it. And the player's like, oh, can I bring it? I'd like to bring a Wolf Priest. Like, they're supposed to be really rare. Yeah, I can't keep bringing Wolf Priest. I had a paranoid Dark Angels Epistolary Librarian member of the Deathwatch who was actually talking to some of the Dark Angel Successor chapter player characters going, there's a conspiracy, there's far too many Space Wolves showing up here. As soon as one dies and another one shows up, the player just loves Space Wolves, kept on to play them. They have the Tyrannic War Veteran for Ultramarines because they're trying to give Ultramarines something different. The Pure Fists, of course, get nothing, but the Ultramarines, they get some pretty funky abilities, Tyrannic War Stratagems. You have to be rank 1 to get into it. It's 1000 XP. It works out pretty okay. I still find it a bit odd that they give them 1d10 renown starting off. Even though they were very clear previously in the MOOCs, it doesn't matter what you did beforehand in the Deathwatch, everyone starts at kind of the same level, unless you're really acceptors. Like, okay, you fought some Tyranids, but that guy over there for the Crimson Fist, he fought on Rin's World, or he's fought against how many guys, and he's really killed loads of them. It's kind of weird that they're giving them that. They're quite good. One of the things I do like them is you can actually get Medicae for them for 1000 if your group doesn't have an Apothecary. That's pretty handy. They have the Honor Guard, which gets quite a nice advanced scheme. You get those kind of stuff. The requirements for getting into it are quite steep. Of course, it's supposed to be Ultramarines only, but they do say, yeah, you can get into this without being an Ultramarine with GM discretion, because you could use this advanced scheme for a Sanguinary Guard or something, possibly a few changes in the requirements of it to get in stuff. You get Artifice Armor going to this thing. You get some cool benefits and abilities. It's just one of the things that really annoys me is one of their tasks they get is called Honor Debt, where it's all about, oh, you were champion of the, not just a champion for the Ultramarines, you're a champion for all Space Marines. Like, wait, they're talking about this, like, it's just kind of like, why? I personally am allowing this ability to be taken by a champion because it's talking about, oh, you should beat up enemy elites and stuff like that. I was like, okay, that's what the champion should be doing, and you have a really good ability here that is arguably, in some senses, better than the champion abilities, because you can earn renown through things, although you used to be 80 renown this anyway, 80 or more renown to get into this anyway, so it's like, there's no additional benefit aside from RP of getting the additional renown. And even then, the GM might kind of go, well, the 80 renown is you are heroes. There's not higher above that. It's helpful if you do anything that would bring impinge upon your honour, but you've got your renown up to 100 from this point, so it's like, oh, you're losing 3, but you're still greatly respected because people just trust you that much, potentially. You got additional past histories. The section with the Traitor Legionnaires draws out too long, in my opinion, but it details what kind of things the Traitor Legionnaires are getting up to in the Jericho Reach, as well as a couple of stat up and little bits of background for some noteworthy Traitor Legionnaires who are running around in the sector. You also end up with some in the armory section with a few cool pieces of gear. The majority of these you have to take signature war gear to get them. And you have to be of the appropriate chapter, or some for Deathwatch, but you have to take signature war gear to get the stuff. And it's pretty cool. Although I always find it really funny that they seem to really struggle to find stuff for the Ultramarine sometimes. Like, oh, gotta give the Ultramarine something. So they came up with the Gilded Bolt Gun. That's right, you can get a gold bolt gun. That's really cool. Okay. A lot more interesting stuff for some of the other guys. I just find it the fact that they gave them a gold bolt gun kind of funny. and new stuff as well as relics for some of the new chapters, so you don't get the feel left out. They also bring in rules for followers. Followers like minions from Black Crusade. We have some. They can be quite powerful. They have a sample one of a chapter surf. They also have a sample one of Watcher in the Dark, which for a lesser follower, it gives you just horrendous bonuses. When you spend a fate point, you roll d10 on 8, 9 or 10, you haven't spent that fate point. It's like, wait, for 500 XP, it's like if you rolled up a 5. Now these are supposed to be quite rare, you need GM permission for them. GM makes them up, but some of the sample ones here are cracked, like the Fenrisian Wolf for 1500 XP. They're pretty nuts, and in the early levels, they don't advance. In the early levels, a Fenrisian Wolf could easily outshine the player character for a time. Eventually the player cards just get better. The problem with Fenrisian Wolf in particular is like, the player wants to bring them, they invest XP in it, they want to bring it. It's not necessarily that easy to bring these things sometimes on missions, but you know, it can work. They've got some additional stuff on role-playing different chapters and, you know, using divisions in the group and things. And they've got just talk about the divisions that can happen and how to use as a benefit to encourage role-playing, which is cool. They also have an adventure at the back. It seems pretty interesting. I've never actually run it. It's all about tension between different chapters of the world where a bunch of different chapters working together and tension start building up. It seems I personally wouldn't use it as it's written down in the book, but yeah, I could definitely see you could definitely salvage something from a minor for resources, but I'd change stuff from how it is in the book. It gives details on rivalries and things, how to, you know, work them into the game and use them. Sometimes they seem quite silly, the stuff they're suggesting you're doing. It is fantastic if you have a player who wants to play one of these chapters, one of the first founding chapters. If you have no players that are particularly pushed, you know, it does give additional stuff for the core, for the chapters in the core book. It's not necessary, but it's got some quite nice stuff. I just wish they had brought the new when they finally brought in the other first founding chapters, they hadn't just given bonuses, hadn't just increased beyond that range. Guys from the core book, not all the guys from the core book, Stormborns and Black Templars aren't first founding, they get nothing in here. That's fair enough, they get stuff later on. One other thing to note, I had sent in previously an email, or not an email, I sent in a question regarding, well, in this book it's like, oh, you get these additional the additional talents for being a Blood Angel, let's say, but if I'd randomly rolled up a Blood Angel successor, do they get the additional ones in this book but not the ones in the core book, unless I got on the table that they get the ones in the core book? I got a response from Ned Flanders, I believe was one of the game's developers, and he said, yeah, no, you do. And I'd already, because I knew Honoured Chapters coming out, and he said, yeah, no, for the Honoured Chapter characters, you'll get these. So if you have a Flesh Tear from Honoured Chapter, you can get the abilities from this too, the additional squad, the additional soul mode and squad modes. So that's pretty cool. However, I do know well from experience with different people that they're basically, how they respond to queries, I've actually heard of people getting conflicting answers back from them. I don't seem terribly unified. So if you've asked a similar question and they told you something completely different, I'm not surprised. I think it's horribly unfair on the other chapters if they don't get this stuff, because it just means that the core first founding chapters from the core book are just better than almost all the other chapters. I wish they'd advanced it a bit better. I think they could have done a better job with this one, but it still has some very good stuff in here, and you're probably going to have some players or someone who really loves different aspects of it, of the first founding chapters, and in that respect it's not a bad buy. I think they missed out here and they could have done a bit more with potential of it, but I'll leave it at that. I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.